Welcome to the Sports Legends Podcast. I'm your host, Bull, and that's your host, P. And today we're going to be talking about college football, but on other episodes, we'll be talking all things sports. And number one thing, P, that we got to talk about is obviously with college football 2025, that teaser that they just dropped. Oh, my goodness. It just gave me chills thinking back to what the last one was in 2014.
2014, yep.
Something like that, man. So, I mean, it's been such a long time coming, but obviously we are very, excited about seeing this thing coming back around. And, what they used to say, P, and, we're going to, I guess, kind of show our age here some, but they used to say for EA Sports games, they used to say, if it's in the game, it's in the game.
Yeah,
so, one of my biggest questions, just to start this whole thing off, is what features do you want to see in the new college football 25?
Man, I got a ton of them, man. I'm excited about this game. I got about 10 things that I kind of really hope that they put in this game. I mean, 2014 was a classic. Really, all those games were classics, but they're bringing it back. It's been 10 years, so they got to really deliver, So first thing I want to see, number one, we're big Tennessee fans. Okay, you talk about Josh Heupel, his offense. I want to see his offense. I want to see a whole variety of different offenses incorporated in the game. Will they incorporate the wide splits? Really incorporate kind of the more college. We talk about NFL compared to college. College just seems more free and open, whereas NFL is more structured. Will the game have that kind of that open feel to it for the different offenses that we could see? Another thing I want to see in here is the offseason. What's the offseason going to look like? We're talking about dynasty mode. We're in the offseason. Will they add something like a spring game? Will they allow you to be able to control some of the offseason protocols you do with your team? Maybe you want your D-line to become better pass rushers. Can you pick certain tasks they can do in the offseason that can help them be better heading into next season? Obviously, transfer portal, NIL, these are big features that are prominent in college football nowadays. How they incorporate that into the game, I'm sure it's going to be in there, but how will they incorporate that? Can you have control over how much you offer guys, stuff like that? And then, will they add something like Hayes Fawcett? His commits, his graphics, especially with the top 32 players, the 5 stars. Maybe they have some type of graphic that pops up and they commit or something, just something like that. Incorporate that into the game. I think the kids would love that. Obviously the college game day feel. They've already talked about, having unique sound for each stadium, which I think is huge. You got the cowbells from Mississippi State. You got Tennessee singing Rocky Top. I mean, all those unique sounds, I think will definitely add a lot to the game, to the feel of the game. Yeah. And then the big thing for me, this is something me and our nephew Braylon talking about. They can do a whole lot with career mode. I think in career mode, first thing I want to see is, will they kind of incorporate what NBA 2K does and maybe have in like the city in 2K, will they have the campus in my career mode where it's a whole bunch of guys playing online. They're all running around the campus, whatever, and go to class, do those different types of things. And something we talked about, I think, will take this to the next level. What if I'm playing online in my career mode, but you're playing online in your dynasty? And you can actually recruit me to come play for your school.
Wow.
And you can recruit me and you can offer me NIL, that whole deal. Maybe communicate with me, whatever. Maybe you can even come view me play games, you know what I'm saying? Like live, whatever. Wow. I just think those factors could really elevate this game. I don't expect to see that in it. But that's something that we're talking about. So really excited about this game, man. It can be a daggone game changer. But we'll see. Hopefully A&M drop the ball on this one.
Yeah, well, so we saw some clips inside of that teaser where they're showing some of the graphics of them doing that scan on the jerseys and stuff. Oh, yeah. Obviously, one of the biggest things for me in this game is that the graphics going to be crazy, right? Like coming from 2013 to 2014, what the graphics were then, and I honestly think that game was better than Madden was, and I actually feel like the Madden that followed that game was probably the best Madden ever, and it's pretty much just been like downhill, I would say, from there. But, the graphics are going to be great. Like you said, they've got the stadiums. We saw Neyland. We saw for the Florida Gators. We saw, their Gator that they walk out and touch. We saw Notre Dame, that play like a champion that they touch. So, even they showed a Georgia helmet. And they've got the, flag on there. You can see, the little warning label on the back of the helmet and all that. So that type of stuff, I think, is super dope. But I think that obviously everything that you just said, P, I want to see all that too. But really all I want to see is just pretty much what we had before from 2014 with better graphics and with the transfer portal, with the NIL. I would be more than happy with that. But my biggest thing, though, is I'm hoping that the gameplay is going to be, again, similar to what it was. Because, man, Madden's gameplay now, it's geared a little bit too much for people who don't really know football. And I mean, I guess that's a good thing for those of y'all, you know what I'm saying, for other people. But for us as football players, I really want to be able to get into the like real fundamentals of the game and know that, hey, if I call certain plays, and something else that I would love to see is the tendencies from different coaching staffs, from different teams being implemented into the game. But I want to know that, hey, if I call this play and if I'm doing everything right, then it should work, right? Yeah. Instead of it being, you know what I'm saying? Like, instead of it being like kind of how it is now, you can pretty much throw it up. And if you're quick with the sticks, you can out jump ball anybody. That's one of the things that's kind of turned me away from playing most of these, sports games is that it's just gotten so unrealistic. Yeah. But yeah, I mean, I do get it. Like, you got to market to so many different people.
But that's a great point. That's another point I want to say is I don't want it to be Madden with college uniform.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying?
Well, all right. So this game is actually running off of the same engine that Madden runs off of. But I don't know if that necessarily means that the gameplay is going to be the exact same. I don't know how all that works, but I mean, but I'm sorry. Go ahead.
No, I was going to say, I wonder how it was back in the day because it seemed like NCAA was different than Madden. Like, it seemed like when I played NCAA, it was different than Madden.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? I don't know if
it was a lot stickier. Like it wasn't as loose and you know what I'm saying? It was something that was better about it. Yeah. Or maybe it was more loose. Yeah. Because it seemed like you could juke people easier. Yeah. But it actually made sense. Yeah, like it actually made sense.
Yeah. So we're super excited about it. What they say, May we'll get some gameplay, I think they said.
Yeah, so that's the other thing that I wanted to talk about. So number one, the college players, I think, if you opt in, so this is one of the things, obviously, for those of y'all who don't know, NCAA was pretty much postponed, or they stopped making it because, or the NCAA, the game, they stopped making it because college players weren't getting paid off of their name, image, and likeness, and we are where we are today with NIL. And it sounds like the college players can opt in or they can opt out. If you opt out, then the player it shouldn't be anything similar to what they have, or to what the actual player is. But the player's only getting like $500. I don't know if that's enough. I kind of feel like it maybe should have been tiered, especially based off of the conference that you play in, like the caliber of player that you are. I think that they probably could have done a little bit more with that, but I think people, are just excited about this game. So they say, well, shoot, we're just going to make it a clean and easy 500 for everybody, just so that we can get this thing out. But yeah, it's going to be dope. I mean, we're going to have, all right, so look, so something else, like whenever we used to play this game, way back in the day, we used to go through, especially you used to go back and you would edit all the players. Yeah, you would make them like everything, all of the wristbands and stuff that they wore, you would make them look just how they actually look, play how they played.
The last names on the jersey.
Yeah. Last names was, I mean, and it would take so much time doing that.
And I loved it.
Yeah, oh yeah.
It's therapeutic.
Yeah, and now you don't even have to do that. So yeah, it's going to be a whole lot of fun. But back to your point about hearing something coming out in May. All right, so I don't know if y'all saw this or not, but at the very end of that teaser, that little, whatever that little board is that they do, whenever they, say cut, action and cut. Yeah. So it's got some interesting numbers on there, okay? And people have been speculating on, do these numbers mean anything? I think that they do. I mean, I sincerely do. So the first one right here, we've got 18 and we've got 05. We heard about May. So 05 will be May. It's going to be May the 18th that we'll see that like official trailer coming out. And then these other numbers, I don't know about those, 19 and 18. I don't know what that means. But then we've also got a 6 and a 7. So is that going to be June the 7th or is it July the 6th? I'm thinking in some type of a way we're seeing like the dates that the game's going to be coming out, or something. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. So it could also be this, because maybe I was looking at it wrong. Maybe it's 6/19 that they'll do like a maybe like a beta run of it, and then maybe on 7/18. What is it saying? 6/19 and then 7/18. Maybe the game will actually drop.
Released, maybe. And you see the 24 over there too on the left hand side.
2024.
They'll know the year. So I mean, I didn't even think about the 05-18 potentially being where they released the gameplay in May. I don't know, but yeah, people are speculating that 6/7/24 is going to be the release date. We'll see. It's kind of cool that they're going to put those type of little nuggets, those little Easter eggs in there. Yeah. Well, everybody's going to be watching the calendars when it gets close to the time. Hey, so we should be expecting it. Something's coming out here. So everybody's excited, man. Can't wait.
Yeah, absolutely. So obviously, keeping with the theme of college football, we're going to move on to, we'll talk about some NIL stuff, but we're also going to kind of talk about, I guess, the impacts that NIL is having on coaches and coaches moving all over the place. So we saw Chip Kelly leave from UCLA. to go to Ohio State to be the offensive coordinator. So for you to go from being a head coach and saying, hey, I'm just willing to be an offensive coordinator at this point, I think that speaks kind of volumes about what the situation was specifically at UCLA. And it could also be that, hey, man, being a head coach, you got to deal with so much stuff. And I've said this for years, that college coaches are underpaid, especially the head coaches. They have so much stuff that they have to do. It's almost like being a politician, being a lawyer, being a father, being an uncle, being a coach, being a boss. Like, they've got so many different hats that they have to wear. Yeah. And I think that's a big part of the reason that we saw him move. But keeping with the Buckeyes, James Laurinaitis, who played linebacker there, was upgraded from a GA to the linebackers coach. And, man, their roster is loaded. They've got a really good coaching staff. But, P, what are your thoughts on just Chip Kelly, going to the Buckeyes?
Yeah, it's like you said, I think the NIL, man. You're seeing coaches leave, go to the NFL, or like Saban just hang it up all together. The NIL, I think, really is changing the way these coaches are approaching the game. Just because I think it's hard to manage your roster. These guys leave pretty much whenever they want. You just don't know what you're going to have. Everybody wants more money. It can be a lot of stress and politics that kind of go into it on top of the recruiting and all that these coaches are already dealing with. So I think, honestly, just like you said, man, Kelly was tired of dealing with that. Said, hey, I'm going to go to an established program. Just be an OC, not to worry about really roster management so much. Just recruit my few guys here and there from my side of the ball, and just go out here and win games on Saturdays. So I think it's a great move for Ohio State. I think that's a huge pickup, a home run hire. He's going to do well there. I think it's going to really elevate that team to the next level. And they're going to be a team to beat, man. They're definitely going to be a team to beat. And then talk about the linebacker. I can't say his last name, but the coach
James.
James. I think he's a young up and coming guy. I can remember seeing him play. Wearing number 33. He was a headhunter out there, flew around.
Yeah, I
think he's going to do well recruiting. I'm sure he kind of has a good hand on this NIL deal. So he's going to be a big upgrade, I think, there for them at that position. And he's going to do well, man. I think they're doing a lot of good things up there in Ohio State. And we kind of talk about them being a potential team to really watch out for, a team to beat.
Oh, I think that they are the team to watch. I think that they are. They've got the best roster, I would say, in the entire country. Wow. And then if you look at bringing Chip Kelly from the Pac-12, obviously he's been there for so long. He was also an NFL coach. He didn't really do well in the NFL. He did good at Oregon for that little spurt. Is his offense outdated, or, is he going to be able to pick it up? I think that it's a match made in heaven, because Ryan Day, his offense, especially last season, just was not great. Now, you could say, was that the quarterback, or was it just the offense, is the overall coaching? I think that they have too much talent, in a conference that, teams are very run heavy in that conference. So you would think that a team that could throw the ball kind of spread you out more and make teams kind of play in space, very similar to what we saw Tennessee do versus Iowa. You would think that they should have a field day up there, but they really, they've done well, but they wasn't able to beat Michigan, and that's their biggest rivalry. Okay, it's one of, if not the toughest game on their schedule every single season. So, I think that bringing in a guy like Chip Kelly, okay, along with the other Pac-12 teams that are coming into this conference, I think that him, first off, being able to have an offense that is going to be simplified, an offense that is, again, predicated off of getting the ball in your playmakers' hands quickly. With all the playmakers that they've already got, they've got great front seven on both sides. I just feel like they should be able to put up a whole bunch of points. And I also think that he can help the Buckeyes, defense learn what to do to stop these Pac-12 types of offenses. And, I think that it's going to work out great, for their whole program. And then something else too, and we'll actually segue into this, but they had hired Bill O'Brien to be the offensive coordinator. And just honestly speaking, I don't really believe in him as an offensive coordinator. He might do better as a head coach with Boston College. But, as an offensive coordinator on the college level, or really on any level, for the past, I would say probably 10 to 15 years, he's been getting fired everywhere that he's been. He hasn't been a very good offensive coordinator. Yeah. So, and then his offense is very complicated. So I think that, I said a whole bunch just to say, I think that literally, the Buckeyes offense is going to take a huge step forward. They've got some very dynamic playmakers playing quarterback. Some guys who could run, who can sling it. And, they could potentially have some Heisman Trophy winners coming out of that program coming up pretty short.
They just got that Julian Sayin, didn't
they? Sayin.
So
I mean, shoot, man, look, they got Nolan. I think Nolan is a sophomore. I mean, he's a stud.
And I got a feeling they're gonna get that Jarrett Curtis, who's a 2026 guy, who I like a lot.
Yeah,
he's a stud. When I watch this film, it reminds me of a bigger, stronger, better Johnny Manziel, which is scary to think about. But just kind of back to Kelly real quick. Something I didn't really think about, but it's gonna be interesting to see. It's always interesting to see how the dynamic works when a head coach comes in to be a coordinator. You know, will him and Ryan Day be able to work hand in hand? Will Ryan Day give him the keys to it and say, hey, this is your deal? Will Ryan Day still want to have his handprint on it, footprint on it, whatever? We'll kind of be interested to see how that all works out. But I mean, you know, on the surface, it looks like it's going to be a really good hire, and they're going to be a tough team to beat in 2024.
Yeah, so I would say to that, I feel like Chip Kelly, because of the lack of success that he's had here recently, I think that he's going to be humble. I think he's going to come into this situation very humble because really, you know, he was kind of kicked out of his last job. I mean, I heard they had like billboards and stuff up saying, you know, like we want you gone and all that, or, you know, like leave or like fire Chip Kelly. So I think that he's going to be humbled and he's going to come into this situation saying, hey, I'm going to put my best foot forward. And, you know, hopefully I can have an offense that puts up a whole bunch of numbers and then I can retry. He probably wants to go on to the NFL. Yeah. Oh, I'm sure. I think that most coaches are trying to leave college right now because of NIL, because of the transfer portal. I don't really think it's too much of NIL. I think it's more of the transfer portal because whenever you're talking about these types of programs, like the real Power 2, okay, talking about the Big Ten and the SEC, okay, Power 2 conferences, everybody's got money. So that's not a big deal. You know what I'm saying? It's going to be more of the having to worry about these transfer portal players, especially guys who are more like depth pieces. I think that that's the biggest thing that's pushing college coaches away from college football. But yeah, I mean, I think personally that is going to be a match made in heaven. And, you know, we'll see how everything plays out coming up here shortly. Now, let's get on to some more coaches that have been moving around just here recently over this past week. So we've got Shawn Elliott, P, from Georgia State. Okay, he did a good job at Georgia State, leaving Georgia State as the head coach, and he leaves like a couple of days into spring practice to go and coach tight ends at South Carolina. What do you make of that?
Well, so he's from South Carolina. And you know, he's always been a South Carolina guy. Wasn't good enough out of high school, I guess, went to App State, but was always a South Carolina guy. I think it's always been his dream school. And heck, maybe he's looking to get in there because, you know, Shane Beamer's kind of maybe a little on the hot seat.
Ooh.
He's looking to say, hey, I'll be next. You know, hey, I'm on the staff. I know the culture. I understand the area. Hire me for your guy. But
that's a great point.
I like him a lot as a coach. I think he's a guy people want to play for. I think he really gets the most out of his guys. He's like a motivator. You know what I mean? Has a good energy about him. You know, but I mean, he was solid at Georgia State. I think he was 41 and 44, something like that. So wasn't even quite 500, but he was definitely solid. But we'll see. I mean, we'll see what type of recruiter he is. Anytime a head coach comes to your living room, you know, former head coach, I think they kind of have a different presence about him. I think he'll be a pretty solid recruiter, especially being from South Carolina and just being a guy that really bleeds the garnet and black, whatever colors they are. So, you know, you know, I think it's a good hire, and you know, we'll see how he does here coming up this season.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, obviously he's just going to be coaching tight ends, but P, you brought up an excellent point. If he is kind of going there because he does see that Shane Beamer is probably about to get the boot, which I do think that he will. Just honestly speaking, I don't know what South Carolina. I mean, they've got a pretty tough schedule coming up. So
they got Clemson. I know they got Clemson, and then they already got everybody else they got. So I mean, you do the math. You know?
Yeah,
I think they got North Carolina too. So
yeah, I mean, I don't remember exactly what it is off the top of my head, but we did actually look at it. But yeah, their schedule is tough, and they don't have a whole lot of, you know, necessarily talent. You know, obviously Spencer Rattler leaving. You know, he's one of the better quarterbacks that they've had in a long time since maybe like what was the guy's name that was there with Spurrier?
Jeff Garcia.
Yeah, I think that you got to go back to like that time period. You know, for them to have had a quarterback that was as good as Rattler was. Offensive line's got some huge question marks. I mean, they just got a whole lot of holes on that team. So, yeah, I think that was smart on his part if that's what he's trying to do. But I also think that it's to our first point kind of talking about with these head coaches saying it's too much to have to worry about with everything that's going on with college football right now. And maybe he said, hey, I'm just going to kind of take a step back and, you know, just kind of do something that I don't have to worry about everything as much.
I mean, and especially at a school like Georgia State, because if you do get a guy that's a stud, I mean, you know, people are going to come get, they're going to take him off the roster. You know what I mean?
Oh, yeah. That's another good point. Yeah. Because I didn't even think about it from that perspective. Yeah. And that's, you know, I'm thinking, are there some ballers on Georgia State's roster that, because, I mean, now they can enter into the transfer portal, but will a school accept them? right? Because we're like not really midterm, but we've already started spring. So, I mean, it's a big old mess. It's a whole lot to think about, but I think that everything is going to get cleaned up, and we'll talk about that here in just a second. So the next coach, we've got Brian Jean-Marie leaving Tennessee to go to Michigan. Now, Brian Jean-Marie was the Tennessee coach, or I'm sorry, he was the linebackers coach at Tennessee. And, him going to Michigan, it sounds like it was a lot to do with the contract. Michigan offered him 3 years, where Tennessee has a policy where they only offer 2 years. So, again, I think that just like the turnover rate of things just kind of speaks to, coaches want to go somewhere where they, I guess, can maybe stay a little bit longer or, have some type of, I don't know.
Security.
Yeah, something. Mm-hmm. So I don't know. That was an interesting one to me. And then we've also got leaving from Tennessee, their running backs coach, Coach Jerry Mack. He left to go to the Jacksonville Jaguars. So, we'll see. Tennessee's definitely looking for some more coaches, and they're going to be, eyeing a whole lot of people. I wonder if they'll try to go target somebody from Georgia State's roster. All right, and the next coach that I want to talk about is Stephen Adegoke. I don't know if I'm saying his name correct or not, but it's rumored that he's looking to go to Michigan from the Texans, and right now he's the Texans safety coach, and he would be the secondary coach with Michigan. So, don't know, what all is going to happen with that, but that's definitely an interesting one. I'm not quite sure why, as an NFL coach, you would want to come back down to college. Now, I think that he did play at Michigan. He's got some pretty strong Michigan ties. But yeah, I mean, I wouldn't want to go coach college ball right now for nothing.
Yeah, I don't get that. I mean, I don't know. Maybe he was on the hot seat. I'm not sure how good the Texans DBs were necessarily last season.
Oh, I mean, they were good. I mean, the daggum Texans almost. I mean, there was a playoff team.
Yeah,
you know what I'm saying?
CJ Stroud. I mean, they definitely up and coming. I don't know why he'd want to leave because, like you said, I think everybody's kind of goal is to get to the NFL.
Yeah.
So I don't know,
especially right now.
Yeah, I don't know. We'll see.
For sure. All right. So now we already talked about Boston College hired Bill O'Brien as their head coach, and he's making a couple of moves. He went out and found his defensive coordinator in Tim Lewis. And now Tim Lewis is someone who we actually know. So his son played on my son's football team when it was like 6 years old. So, we go way back. That was back when he was coaching at the Falcons, and he was a secondary coach for the Falcons. I don't know if he coached corners or if he coached safeties, but this is a funny story that we had told on one of our, well, it's not really a funny story, but this is a story that we had told on our other channel that he had told us that RG3, he was, was just talking about him, just like regular football talk. It was like, man, he might be the best quarterback in the league at that point. And the Falcons were playing up against him, I want to say in that upcoming week. He was like, man, he's not big enough. He said he runs too much and he's not big enough. He's like, he's not going to make it through the season. And I want to say, yeah, it was that week. It was, yeah. Okay. Yeah. So Spoon literally took him out in that next game. So, yeah, he's a really good coach. And, I think he's going to do some great things up there at Boston College. And now Boston College is also targeting the Patriots tight end coach in Will Lawing as their offensive coordinator. And he spent a lot of time with Bill O'Brien back with the Texans. I think he spent about 7 years with him. So we'll see how all that plays out. But, it sounds like maybe Boston College might be a team, maybe not necessarily this season, but you never know with that transfer portal. Yeah. I mean, maybe they step up pretty quickly and turn into a real threat.
We'll see. It seems like they're getting a lot of kind of
NFL type guys, yeah.
But it makes me kind of think of was it Tennessee staff when they had Jeremy Pruitt? They brought in a lot of guys, seem like kind of were NFL type guys. Mm-hmm. And I think sometimes we bring that college or that NFL scheme philosophy to college level. I don't know. I guess you got to be a really good coach, really good teacher to get it to work. So we'll see if this is too high level for these guys. I know talking about Will, Coach Will.
Yeah, Lawing.
Yeah, he doesn't. I don't know. I think it'll be his first coordinator position. So we'll kind of see how he handles that. Like I said, reminds me a lot of Tennessee back when they had Pruitt. I know they brought in Tyson Helton, who had been an analyst and had done some things on the offensive side, but was never actually the coordinator. Mm-hmm. His first time being the coordinator didn't really go well. So we'll see. Definitely a team to watch. They got a lot of new pieces on that staff, but it'll definitely be a kind of interesting case study. See how they do. Yeah, for sure. Yeah, and I think that part of I guess to your point, P, part of what I think you're saying right there is NFL, you don't really have to teach. You know what I'm saying? It's more like they kind of come in ready and it's like you get that playbook. I mean, obviously you have to teach like at some point, but you get that playbook. You got to know what the plays are. You need to know what to do or you're going to get cut. We'll find somebody who does.
And you can't bring that same type of mindset to college. To your point, P, you had to be able to teach. So I think that's going to be the biggest thing for both of these guys, being more NFL caliber coaches. So that's an interesting point. Now, I want to kind of switch gears here and talk more about NIL because we started to talk about it. Pretty much everything that every single segment in this entire video we've touched on NIL. Mm-hmm. We've talked about the transfer portal. And unless you live under a daggum rock, okay, then you know that the SEC and the Big Ten have come together, okay, and they're pretty much now telling everybody in college football what they want. And I think that a lot of change is coming here very, very soon. The SEC just had a meeting this past week. I think it was on Tuesday or something. And then there's a big CFP meeting that's going to be coming up, and we'll touch on that too. But number one, man, it sounds like this was in the works for some months. We get the lawsuit from the state of Tennessee versus the NCAA. Once the NCAA says that they are going to be investigating Tennessee for NIL violations, it comes out there shortly after, okay, publicly from the Big Ten and from the SEC that they're going to be joining forces and that they're pretty much going to be leading the charge on changing college football for the better, or at least for the betterment of the way that they see it, as the conferences that generate the most revenue that, most people are watching those teams play, those conferences play. So that's going to be very interesting. And also, something else that I found that was interesting was listening to Greg Sankey talk, because somebody asked him, what do he think about the lawsuit that Tennessee has versus the NCAA? And he said, well, I think that we should not be focusing on new cases. We need to be trying to get rid of the old cases. Mm-hmm. And they've got billions of dollars worth of lawsuits against them right now, they being the NCAA. So I don't know, Pete, what are your thoughts? Do you think that the NCAA is going to be, do you think that it's done? Or do you think that it's going to take a step back? just based off of what we've kind of seen and heard, from Greg Sankey, because he's been the most vocal on all this stuff.
Yeah, I mean, I think they're definitely on the way out. I think it may still take a few more years, for it to really get to that point, but I think definitely on the way out. I think the case they have with Tennessee right now, I don't want to say it's the first kind of notch or whatever in the belt, but I think it's definitely a big one that's going to really get the ball rolling. I think if they go out here, we're still waiting on the injunction hearing that Tennessee's going through right now with, versus NCAA. We'll see what happens in that hearing. But I think if they win that, what basically means they're done. They can't really do anything, at least for the foreseeable future.
Yeah. So if Tennessee wins that hearing, okay, then what that means is the NCAA can't enforce NIL or transfer portal rules. Mm-hmm. I guess until they can get it taken up to maybe like a higher court. Mm-hmm. And then if the NCAA wins, then they would be back in place. But I don't see that happening, right? But just because legally they don't have anything to stand on. I mean, everything that they're doing violates that Sherman Act. Mm-hmm. And then, the judge in Tennessee's case pretty much already said it. He said, hey, look, if y'all try to pursue this further, I believe that Tennessee's going to win. He said, because this is a clear violation of that Sherman Act. So, I think that they're definitely taking that step back. And two, you were talking about it, Tennessee kind of getting that ball rolling. Mm-hmm. We saw Oregon coming out here recently, with their own bill that they are proposing for their state, where basically, saying that, hey, the NCAA cannot infringe on the players in this state's rights to be able to get paid off of their name, image, and likeness. So there's so many different kind of parties coming together against the NCAA. Yeah, and I think, like you said, the biggest one is SEC and the Big Ten, the two true conferences. If you took those two conferences out of football, I mean, who's really watching it? But if you took every other conference out and left them in there, I think you still would have a good product. Like they run college football, and the fact that they've come together, I mean, that tells you all I need to know. And like I said, I think it's just a matter of time. One domino will fall after another, but I think NCAA is on the way out. Because you can't, in the whole NIL era, you can't restrict these guys' ability to make money. I mean, they're employees. They're making money. You can't put a limit on it, especially when you're making billions off of them. Right. So, I mean, at the end of the day, it's not going to hold up in court, as we've seen time and time again. And so, like I said, I think it's just a matter of time for those guys. Yeah, absolutely. So, what I'm thinking too, just based off of, because P, you were saying that you think that it would probably take a couple of years. I don't think that it's going to take that long, because if you listen to what Greg Sankey talked about with that Project D1 that the NCAA was, is trying to get everybody in college football to kind of sign off on, which basically, for those of y'all who don't know what that is, it would be that, schools can now put the players on salary. And, if you are a school that can pay, I want to say it was $30,000 for half of all of your student athletes. If you can pay half of all of your student athletes a salary of $30,000 or more, then you would essentially be able to create your own rules. You can have as many scholarships as you want. You can have like transfer, bring in transfers, I guess, as many times as you want. You essentially will be able to create your own rules anyway. And the whole plan for that was for it to be implemented this August. So I think that looking at how everything is kind of played out, that Greg Sankey is really looking at, hey, we're going to implement our own deal because, the SEC and the Big Ten didn't like the way that it was written up by the NCAA, and they're going to get something figured out. But I think that the positive thing with that is going to be that, now we can kind of get some real rules in. We can get, because now, the NCAA only has guidelines at this point, right? It's an absolute joke. So I think that being able to get some real set rules in, getting players, a set salary, okay, and then they can still make however much NIL money on top of that. Mm-hmm. Now we're talking about something that's going to make sense.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, and I think that's the main thing, put that salary cap in there, have some type of regulation, so it's not like how it is now. Because we heard this with Tennessee, the Tennessee case during the court hearing they had the other day. The NCAA is talking about the rules and, a recruit can talk to a collective if the collective isn't associated with the school. But then they're like, well, how the heck do you know a collective is not associated with the school? Like, how can you distinguish that? And they didn't really know how to answer that. They were fumbling over the words. They didn't even know their own rules. They were backtracking. So, it's very ambiguous right now.
Yeah.
And so I think, like you said, man, the commissioner of Big Ten and the SEC, they're tired of it, man. So they're going to go ahead and take it into their own hands. And they're not worried about being able to pay these guys. Heck, they got money for days. They bring in all the money. They're making billions a year, whatever it is. So, I think this is the way it's heading. And you probably are right. I think it won't be a full few, 2-3 years before the NCAA is all the way done. I think it might be, you made a great point there. Maybe think of it as maybe the bigger conferences, maybe the Power 2 or maybe the Power 4 or whatever, they break away. But then NCAA still manages the Sun Belt and, the MAC, those conferences for a few more years until they can figure something out to maybe kind of join the big boys. But yeah, I think they're kind of a, what's the word? I guess like a shell of themselves at this point. You know what I mean?
They don't really have any real power at this point to enforce anything. So something else that we just touched on is there's going to be a CFP meeting coming up here soon, and they want to expand the playoffs again. They're talking about expanding it to 16, maybe 18 teams, or 14 or 16. I've heard 18 thrown around some, but what do you think about that?
I don't know. I guess it's good. I just don't know if expanding it is going to make it more competitive. I don't know. Maybe it will. Maybe there's a year where a good team starts off slow. Maybe the quarterback's hurt or something, and he comes back, and then they're all of a sudden the best team in the country. You know what I mean? So maybe they get hot with 2-3 losses, still gonna make a run. But I think at the end of the day, it's probably going to still be kind of those top 4 or 5 teams that are going to be playing for it. You know what I mean? I don't think adding more to the party is going to really do anything. I think this is all about making more money, which is all.
Oh yeah, well it ain't no doubt about that. Everything in this country is about making money.
That's what it's all about. But I guess I'm even though I don't think it's going to make it more competitive, I'm still kind of all for it because hey, give these teams a chance.
Yeah.
It gives more teams a chance to sneak into it. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Why not?
Do you know how many teams are in the NFL playoff?
The NFL has 14 teams in it.
Okay. So yeah, it's pretty much the same thing that they're trying to pursue here for college. So I guess I like it overall.
I think that they really should, and I'm sorry to cut you off, but I think that they really should just try to implement a lot of what the NFL is doing because it's a model that works. It's a model that people love. And I think that's a big part of the reason too, not to backtrack too much, but I think that that's why this won't be as big of a deal for college basketball, right? I think that the NCAA is going to really stay in place with college basketball because of the tournament. The tournament produces so much money. And listen, I'm going to start making brackets for the college football playoff, especially, I would say we could start it up this season once it goes to 12.
Yeah, that's a great idea. I don't think about that. Yeah. Start dagging bracket. That's going to be huge, man. But we'll see. Like you said, the other sports. I think basketball will be fine, but that's the thing. There's so many other sports involved. I just think for this thing to work the way everybody wants it to work, you almost have to separate football from everything else.
Yeah. Well, I mean, especially talking about that power too. Major college football, it's its own beast. Like you really can't try to group it in with everybody else. It's completely different because they're generating so much money, and then it's so many different moving pieces, so many players. There's just a lot more to handle there. But I do think that Greg Sankey and Tony Pettiti are going to get that one right. Now, something else that they'll be talking about at this CFP meeting, and this is probably the most pressing matter, is moving the playoffs to a 5+7 model, right? Where you get the 5 conference champions and then you get the 7 teams after that. I think that makes the most sense. And it sounds like the only conference that wasn't for that was the Pac-12. We know that all they've got right now is Oregon State and Washington State. And we don't know what's going to happen with them. But everyone else has already signed off on it, and it sounds like they're saying, "Well, yeah, like we definitely want to sign off on it because they're trying to join back in. Like they are still technically part of it, but they don't have a conference that they can win a conference title with because there's not enough teams. So we'll see what happens with them. But Pete, what do you think about the 5+7 model versus the 6+6?
It makes most sense. Obviously, you win your conference, you deserve to be in. I mean, that's pretty much basic fundamentals. And then the 7, the next 7 best teams. So that's the interesting piece is because we're going to still end up having the same arguments we have every year. The first 1 or 2 out. It's going to be the same deal when we expand it to 7 more teams that we're looking at. Heck, are you going to take a 11-2, ACC, 2-loss team in ACC, or a 9-3 or 10-3, whatever SEC team? Lost 3 games, but is that team? You're going to put that team ahead of the 2-loss ACC team? Like, I think it's still going to be a lot of kind of comparing, and a lot of people aren't going to be happy still. I think it's still going to be the same thing we're seeing now, but now it's going to be maybe more teams that think they have a real shot, but they're going to be just on the outside looking in. I mean, it's going to be teams in the daggum Sun Belt. We only lost 1 game.
Yeah, but that's my point is I don't think that they're even going to be part of this conversation, like because I think it's just going to be. Well, I feel like that's where it's going, right? Because you know what, it needs to be like the NFL model because you don't hear people in the NFL complaining, "Oh, our team should have got in." You might say, "Hey, our team could have won this game," but you never hear, "Hey, like they got cheated because they didn't get essentially voted into the playoffs." Do it that way, man. You've got 2 different conferences, and you do it just like the NFL does. The little small conferences, whoever wins those is a playoff team, and then you've got the 2 wild card teams. I just think that makes the most sense.
Yeah.
So hopefully that's what they try to move more towards, and I think that the NFL really needs to do. I feel like they need to try to get more involved with college football. I don't know how involved they actually are at this point, but if I was them, I would really be doing my best to get as involved with college football as I possibly can because that's the future of your sport. That's your product. Yeah. Help it run smoothly. If you've got some, ideas that you could throw out there about how everything should work, I'm sure that Greg Sankey and all them will listen to it. They seem like they're smart, reasonable people. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, I mean, and to your point, that's kind of what's going to. But yeah, the college football needs a commissioner. We need a college football commissioner that can really oversee things and make those decisions. Just make those calls. We don't need a whole committee like NCAA, a whole governing body.
Yeah,
we just need one guy pretty much can make kind of call those shots. So. Yeah. It's an interesting landscape, but I think one of the biggest things, at least for me, that I would change about what we're having right now is the transfer portal. I think right now it's just too wide open. I would be all for cutting one of those windows out, either the early window, in the spring, whatever, or the December window, whatever it is. Cut one of those windows out and just say, hey, you got to either do it, at the end of the season or do it before the season. But you can't do it whenever the heck you want. Because again, that's why we're seeing these coaches, Chip Kelly, all these guys, Shawn Elliott, Nick Saban, all these guys. We're seeing these guys leave because it's impossible to manage your roster with the way it is right now. So they definitely need to make some rules on that.
Well, yeah, I'm glad that you brought that up, Pete, because we almost didn't even get to that. But yeah, that's probably the biggest thing that does need to change. And whenever you're talking about putting the players on salary, once they're on salary, now you can really enforce rules, okay? Because that's a whole different deal, right? So for sure, that transfer portal rule, and I don't know exactly how it should look, but if it was me, like if I was on, if I was part of whatever group's going to be voting on that, I would say, hey, listen, players have to stay with the school for at least one season. You know, like maybe you can't put a cap on how many times they can transfer out, but you've got to at least stay for a full year before you can transfer out. And I think that would make things just so much better. Like stick it all the way through because, you know, man, like these are college kids. You're going to kind of get in your feelings one day and you might, you know, end up saying, oh, I'm just going to go somewhere else. And it ends up being a terrible decision for you.
You know what?
In the daggone long run.
I'm honestly kind of all for, people may not like this, but I'm kind of all for the way it used to be before COVID, when like you had to have a special reason to transfer. Like if you could transfer, you had to sell a year if you transferred, or you had to get a special reason. You know, like, I mean, heck, COVID's over with now. You know, let's kind of go back to how it was. You can't just freaking leave your school. You commit to a school, you're locked in.
Yeah.
You want to transfer, stay out a year, or you better have, you know, a significant reason. Maybe a family member sick, whatever it is. But it shouldn't be the Wild West like it's been.
Yeah, I mean, they might try to do it that way. I mean, that might be something that they try to throw in there. Yeah, I don't know if that's right necessarily.
I'll be all for it because then, you know, that gives these players more incentive to actually make the right decision out of high school. Especially now with what Tennessee's fighting for, we want to be able to give these players full visibility in what they're going to be getting in NIL, the whole deal. So now, you know, all that's kind of coming full circle. They're getting the full picture before they commit to a school. And then, you know, again, it could be a deal where you put in a clause or whatever where if a player is promised this much money but they don't get it, that could be a reason they can leave. You know what I mean? They can leave for that, like things like that. But if a school's fulfilling their obligations, you know, and doing everything they said they do for you, I mean, you can't just say, well, heck, I want, you know, $50,000 more this year, and if you don't pay me, I'm leaving. You know what I mean? Like, I just don't feel like that's fair. I don't know. I don't know. Maybe it is.
Yeah. Well, I'll just say it like this: like once they turn into employees, it's definitely fair. Yeah, but you also got to understand it. I mean, it's going to work both ways, and it does kind of sound like they've already started putting this inside of NIL contracts where the contract is void once you transfer out. So you have to stay for a certain period of time to be able to get all the money. It's the same thing with any other contract. You know what I mean? But you can also opt out of it. If you opt out of it, hey, you might owe some money, or you know what I'm saying? Like this is a business. You know what I'm saying? So that's how I look at it. I think that they should definitely be able to transfer. But again, it's got to be a limit on. I think that they need to have to stay for at least 1 year or it's something. You know what I'm saying? Just to keep it from being because literally right now they're saying that you can transfer at any point. So I think that that's a little bit too wide open. But that's just what I think personally. And so they'll actually be voting on the 5+7, you know, on the CFP February the 20th, and I think that's this upcoming Wednesday. So y'all should have this video out before then. But I think that's gonna be it for the first one. You know, we just wanted to kind of get out here and introduce ourselves to y'all, and hope that y'all enjoy the first video of the channel. We're gonna have a whole lot more content coming out here, though. You know, obviously we've got NBA All-Star Weekend coming up, and you know we'll touch on a whole bunch of different sports. And as always, man, please make sure to like, subscribe, hit that notification bell. Please, because that's going to help us out tremendously while we are in the early stages of trying to grow this thing. And we'll see y'all on the next one. Thanks. Peace.